All right, guys. As this week has kicked off, and you can hear the motorcycles in the background, a lot of teams are reporting to training camp. And with training camp starting and preseason right around the corner, people are now shifting their attention back into fantasy football. So what better way to wrap up July than with a mock draft for the 2023 fantasy football season? Now, I've already done one mock draft on this channel, and because I don't want to do the same thing over and over again, because that is boring, today we're going to mock draft with a little twist. So as always, do all the three things you're supposed to do with YouTube. Like the video, comment down below about your mock drafts, subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and I'll see you on the other side of that intro, guys. Welcome back into Twin Takes Fantasy Football for another mock draft. Today, as I said in the intro, we're going to be doing a little bit of a twist. Now, I have been very vocal about just the disparity in the top-end wide receivers this year compared to the value at positions you can get down the board. I think there's a lot of value in the later rounds as it gets to running backs, quarterbacks, and tight ends. However, when you get outside of the top 3 rounds, there just really is no replacement for those high-end wide receivers, especially as the NFL in and of itself switches to a more pass-dominant and pass-heavy league. So I've been very vocal about, making sure in the first 2 rounds you're getting wide receivers. 2 out of the first 3 rounds, you're really loading up on a wide receiver. But I can't really advocate for that unless I try something else. So the twist today is I'm going to start out with a very RB heavy draft. We're going to be transporting back about 5 years when only RBs went in the first few rounds. And I'm just going to see how I feel with taking running backs. I'm going to force myself to take running backs from the first round and second round and see how I feel about my draft. I've done a couple mock drafts with that mindset previous to this, and I can tell you I felt really gross. So I'm not anticipating feeling great after this draft, but the more I do this, the more I practice taking running back at the top of the draft, the more I can be confident in my advice for you guys to go ahead and take wide receiver at the top of the draft and grab running back value later on down the board. So again, I'm basically testing my theory by forcing myself to do the opposite. And if I can't find enjoyment or I can't find value doing the opposite, then I know that my initial theory was even more resolute. So that's going to be the goal here for today. Also, as we get into this draft, this app that I'm on is sleeper.com or sleeper.app. On the web, there's also an app, and you go into Google App Store the Google Play Store or the iOS App Store. It's just Sleeper. And it's fantastic. It's one of the best platforms for fantasy football and does these great little mock drafts. So for any of you wondering where I do these mock drafts, this is the platform I do it on. So without further ado, let's jump into this. I did previously pick my spot I was going to mock draft from on our last one. Let's randomize it this time. Hey Siri, can you give me a random number between 1 and 12? I got 2. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, it's going to be 2. Is it focusing? I hope you guys trust me. It's 2. So I know I'm going to leave with either Austin Eckler or Christian McCaffrey, which I guess in the spirit of taking a running back heavy draft, if you're going to get one of those, you might as well take one of the top 2 guys in Christian McCaffrey or Austin Eckler. And as you guys notice, I always say please and thank you to the AI here. When the AI overlords do overtake us, you always want to be nice, want to have them remember you fondly, so they might spare your lives. I've also noticed, oddly enough, that when I use ChatGPT, if you enter the prompt with a please instead of saying just, hey, do this for me, the prompt tends to be writing faster. So, yeah, not really sure about AI. But apart from my concerns about the rapidly evolving AI, let's jump into this actual draft. So let's go ahead and start. Yes, I'm ready to start my mock draft. They took just Jefferson number 1, which is absolutely the right pick. But, maybe I'm concerned about Jamar Chase's hip. Maybe I'm concerned about T. Higgins. Maybe just the Bengals in a really tough AFC division overall. So I'm going to take Christian McCaffrey, who's in the NFC. And honestly, if there's any running back warranted that was warranted of a first round pick, it's going to be Christian McCaffrey. Now, if I was down here around the turn, I'm just going to pause and talk about this. I would probably be aiming, if you're really, really set on the running back mindset and you're down here in the 10, 11, 12 area, I'm really be focusing on guys like Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry. I'll actually do a full video here shortly breaking down how I rank all my running backs, but I am terrified of Jonathan Taylor and what he can provide. I'll get into that more in depth, with the running quarterback and Anthony Richardson and just overall offensive production with the rookie. Saquon Barkley, He just signed a contract earlier today, but it still doesn't make me, I think there's going to be a lot of regression on the Giants offense. So if you do really want to go for a running back central strategy and you are stuck down towards the 1-2 turn, Chubb, Henry, Bijan are the guys I would definitely be targeting. And honestly, in a lot of homings, I would be very, very surprised if Bijan actually fell to 110. The hype around him is absolutely soaring at the moment. So let's look. I've had a minute, 20 seconds to make my decision, and I said I'm going to force myself to take a running back here. So I have Tony Pollard, Breece Hall. Gosh, I would love Waddle here. Is just absolutely, that's a steal. Like, it's every fiber of my being is telling me to take Waddle because it's an amazing steal here. I am going to go with Najee Harris. I think, we look at his production after he came back from the bye week, after he had the plate removed from his foot. You have to take into account the first 9 weeks or so of the 2022 season. He was playing with a minor Liz Frank injury and a massive plate in his foot. So, after that, he was a top 10 running back production when he came back from the bye week. So I think, with the upgraded offensive line, Najee Harris is definitely in play for a big, big breakout role. Right here, I'm very, very fortunate to have Jalen Waddle fall to me, so I will be taking Jalen Waddle. Not too much about it. I've been very vocal about how strong the wide receivers are. Jalen Waddle in the third is an absolute steal, being tied to Tua Tagovailoa and Mike McDaniels, and just that absolutely insanely explosive offense. With then the Miami Dolphins, he's going to be a week winner for sure. I always like when you're targeting some of these wide receivers, you look at Terry McLaurin, who's a fantastic wide receiver in his own right. But he just doesn't have the upside that Jalen Waddle has. He's might be more consistent. He might overall finish better, but he's never going to be one of those guys that win you a week. And, when it comes to fantasy football, you want those guys that are going to have those big blow up games, those 30-point games that will win you weeks. So right here, we're looking at what we have left on the draft board here. We have Justin Fields. We have TJ Hawkinson. Not really guys I'm looking here. We did say we're going to go really running back heavy, and this gets into the tier of running backs that I do like, that I think are tremendous values. Miles Sanders is a top 10 running back for me, even though ADP and most fantasy heads consensusly would not agree. So even with my lack of tight end, wide receiver, and all that other fun stuff on the roster, I think I still have to go Miles Sanders. I think the value here is just too good for what he can provide. I've been on record about him being a pass-catching running back, and I still stand by that. And I'm even more resolute in that take when he met with Frank Reich and management down there in Carolina and say, hey, listen, I was very productive my rookie year with Philadelphia Eagles, catching 56 passes, being that pass catching change of pace back. And I think he's one of the true workhorse backs that's going to be on the field for potentially all 3 downs, or at least the majority of downs. And that's kind of the trend that I've taken with Sanders, Najee, and Christian McCaffrey. They're the last of a dying breed. You look at Breece Hall, but he's not going to be on the field for all those every single down. You look at a Travis Etienne as a great example, as I would take Miles Sanders over Travis Etienne, who's going, over around earlier. We're going to have Tank Bigsby, and there's going to be a change of pace back. He's not going to have that true 60 to 70% workload that we like to see from our fantasy running backs. Miles Sanders is one of the few guys that can get that done. So I have a minute left to pick. I'm going to go here, and there's the end of a tier for me when it comes to quarterbacks. Again, I think right here, a lot of these guys, when it comes to wide receivers, you see those guys that they're good, they're solid, but they're not going to win you weeks. I think there's more value down the board with wide receivers. So, right here, I'm going to go targeting high-end talent at the at the quarterback and the tight end position. So Justin Herbert, really, there's a massive drop-off after Justin Herbert. You have these 6 quarterbacks, and Herbert being the 7th. I think he's primed for a bounce-back year with Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. So with that being said, we've seen how precious and how valuable those high-end quarterbacks are. So I'll be taking Justin Herbert here in the 4th round and pushing my wide receiver depth really further on down the board. But I know with having Harris, Sanders, and McCaffrey on my team, I don't have to go and take a ton of running backs towards the end of the round. I have a lot of, lower end wide receivers that I can take a lot of upside shots on. So we look here. Let's see if he gets to me. Yeah, perfect. There's definitely, and this is why I like the running back so much. You can have so much value here. In the 6th round, you're looking at Javonte Williams, Rashad White, Alvin Kamara, David Montgomery, all guys. Like, if I had those 4 guys as my core running back situation, I'd be extremely happy. So, I think the delta between if you look at like a Waddle versus, even though I got Waddle on my team, I'm not sure what Team 1 was doing. If Team 1 should have taken Waddle ahead of me, but if you look at my 211 selection, the delta between Waddle and Najee is much greater than the delta between, how am I trying to phrase this? The delta between Najee and a Javonte Williams or an Alvin Kamara is not as big as the delta between a Jalen Waddle and a Deontay Johnson or a Jackson Smith and Jigba. So as we can see, the high-end wide receivers are just much, much more valuable. And even as I continue, even though I am happy with Christian McCaffrey and Najee Harris and these really, really workhorse, powerful running backs, I still am feeling left for wanting high-end wide receivers. Just because right down here, you have a lot of inconsistency, a lot of injury concern, a lot of wide receiver twos that, might not be the primary option on their team and could be very, game dependent rather than week in, week out guys that, you're going to see 6, 7, 8 targets a game. But with that being said, I'm going to push wide receiver even further. I'm going to take Dallas Goedert, one of the biggest steals at the tight end position. For me, he's my tight end 3, not only in Dynasty, but in redraft as well. I just think being tied to Jalen Hurts, his utilization before he got injured was absolutely ridiculous. He was on pace after Mark Andrews. Granted that Mark Andrews was injured, he was on pace to be the tight end 2 before Dallas Goedert's injury, but being tied to one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL would be a ton of opportunity for points, and I think Dallas Goedert is just one of those tremendous tight ends. I'm definitely taking him ahead of Pitts, Kittle, and Hawkinson for sure. And right here, we can look down. I can't put off wide receiver any longer. I have to have some guys, and we'll go through this. I have an idea of doing a video where it's like, hey, listen, kind of sift through the BS of a lot of fantasy analysts. A lot of people talk about unrealized air yards and ADOT and all these just insane metrics, but you don't need to get that deep for fantasy. Just look at what's put on a platter right in front of you. And right in front of us, we have Jahan Dotson, one of the most productive rookies when he was healthy last year. If he had stayed healthy and played all 17 games, we're talking about the same production profile as a Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson. I mean, his touchdown rate was absolutely absurd, much higher than both Olave's or Wilson's. And guess what? He got an upgrade at offensive coordinator. He gets Eric Bieniemy, who's worked with Patrick Mahomes and has done wonders for passing yards and passing games. I mean, come on. Don't overthink this. It's Jahan Dotson. He's going to be incredible as a wide receiver this year. So him in the 7th round. If I am going to put off taking a wide receiver, Jahan Dotson's a guy I'm certainly targeting later on down the board to be a wide receiver too. And I have that much confidence in him to step in and be a starting wide receiver in my lineup week in and week out. All right, come on. Let's see who gets back to me. We do have Brandon Cooks. Not really sold on him. Michael Thomas, I am really, really out because of the injuries. We do have Juju Smith-Schuster, but I'm going to go with a rookie wide receiver here, just a guy that I think is going to take a lot of the workload when it comes to the passing offense. And, listen, there's a lot of great options right here. I love Samaje Perine. I love Jamal Williams. I love Rashad Penny. But again, I need more wide receiver depth. And it is kind of forcing my hand just a little bit to go wide receiver because I know this guy that I'm actually getting a little bit higher on is going to go right here and he won't get back to me. So I have to take him right here. And there's so many running backs in this area that I like. I'm going to reach for the wide receiver a little bit, which is going to be Zay Flowers, and take whatever running back comes back to me. But Zay Flowers, I know I was very critical of him before the draft, even after the draft. I don't like to bet on outliers when it comes to the wide receiver position. He's only 5'9". I mean, the biggest stat is that since 2000, only 7 seasons of over 1,000 yards have been put up by a wide receiver of a 5'9" stature, and 6 of those seasons belong to Steve Smith Sr. The other one belongs to Marquise Brown. But with Zay Flowers, we've seen him being really incorporated into the offense in Baltimore. He's tied to an incredible quarterback in Lamar Jackson, who we know can throw the ball, who is an MVP caliber quarterback, who has an absolute cannon of an arm, who brought in Todd Monken to replace the Greg Roman offense, which is really going to feature a lot of high-powered passing offense. And then with Rashad Bateman going on the PUP list and a lot of injury concerns around Rashad Bateman as he still seems to get over that Liz Frank, maybe not Liz Frank, but a foot injury for sure. His health has been a serious question. I think Zay Flowers is the guy that comes in and can be that he might not have like the touchdown upside of a Jahan Dotson, but he'll come in and he'll get, 5, 6, 7 targets a game. He'll do enough to float in and out as a nice flex option at wide receiver. So at ADP of all the rookie running backs, I am highest on Zay Flowers at ADP. That doesn't mean I'm highest on him overall, but at the current ADP in the 8th round, I think he is the best value of taking a shot on a rookie wide receiver. And we've seen a lot of rookie wide receivers pay off in recent years, whether it was a Jamar Chase, whether it was a Garrett Wilson, a Chris Olave, a Jalen Waddle. It's not as much of a wait for rookie wide receivers to pay off, so you might as well take a shot on some of these guys later on down the board. Zay Flowers is the guy that I'm choosing at ADP price. So now I can look at taking another running back, because we see in this league, there's 2 flexes. Nothing stopping us from flexing 2 running backs, and I just like the value of running backs here. We have Jamal Williams, we have Khalil Herbert, and Samaje Perine, 3 guys that I think are gonna, not gonna be a top 24 running back, but they will have great weeks. I think I'm gonna go with the guy that Jamal Williams, with an impending suspension to Alvin Kamara. Jamal Williams will absolutely get featured. Kendre Miller goes on the PUP list to start training camp, so I think Jamal Williams' role will be heavily featured. And we all know how important it is to get out to a good start in fantasy football. So Jamal Williams here in the 9th round is an absolute insane steal. Definitely be putting him into my flex in the first couple weeks. Maybe I can flip him, maybe I can trade him, or at least, alleviate some pressure down the stretch by having a good, strong start to the season. So I'll take Jamal Williams here. Just because I started really heavy with running backs doesn't mean I can't take value on running backs down the board. Some people say, well, now that you have all your 3 main guys, just take a ton of upside shots on wide receivers. You don't necessarily have to do that. Yes, it's important to have a balanced team. Yes, it's important to go out and make sure you're not lacking in any one or have a deficiency in any one area of your team, but don't let it handcuff you from taking value. And I thought the biggest value at the 9-2 position was Jamal Williams, a guy that's definitely going to be very prevalent and for at least the first 2 weeks. Right here, there's a lot of things going on that I'm not a huge fan of. With why I like to take Dallas Goedert. You either try to find those guys that are true values at the position, or you try to punt tight end to the very end. But because if you do go in and you do take a Travis Kelce at the top of the draft, if you do take a Mark Andrews or you take a Dallas Goedert, it allows you the flexibility to not take a tight end for the rest of the entire draft. So I see Dalton Schultz here. Dalton Schultz obviously is a great tight end. He's a great pass catcher. He's utilized in a way that's amenable for fantasy football. And obviously, we talk about the narrative of tight ends being great for rookie quarterbacks, of which CJ Stroud is going to be his quarterback this year, a rookie down in Houston. However, I think with Dallas Goedert, there's no way I'm playing Dalton Schultz over Dallas Goedert ever unless Dallas Goedert gets injured. And for whatever bye week Dallas Goedert has, I will just go to the waiver wire. So taking a high-end tight end allows me the flexibility to not draft a tight end for the rest of the draft. However, for quarterback's a little bit more of a premium position. So this is where I'm starting to, consider taking a Jared Goff, consider taking a Kyler Murray. Those are 2 guys I would definitely consider taking here. But I think I'm just going to stack up a little bit more and have a little bit more depth at the positions here. A guy I think, if Zay Flowers isn't the guy, I don't have faith in Rashad Bateman, but Odell Beckham Jr., he's being paid $50 million. All I can say at this point is follow the money, and I don't think it's a bad shot here in the 10th round, especially when I need wide receiver depth. And as you see, a lot of these other teams trying to reach on tight ends and reach on quarterbacks, we're not going to let that affect us because we already have 2 guys that we know are going to be our locked and loaded starters week in and week out. We don't have to worry about that. We can continue to take shots and round out our running back and wide receiver depth. Right here, there's only 1 guy at the skill position players. When I talk about skill position here, it's mostly just running backs or wide receivers, the guys you want 2, 3, 4 of. Only 1 guy here that I think is truly, truly valuable. It's going to be Jerick McKinnon. I'm looking at Jared Goff. I see him. He's not going to get back. He's not going to get around back to me. I think I'm going to take a risk. With we only need 1 1 quarterback. So at this point, I think I'm going to take Jerick McKinnon. But because this is a double flex league, there's going to be 2 flex options. It never hurts to have more of those skill position players, whether it's running backs or wide receivers. So we see Jared Goff go. I'm a little disappointed about that, but I think there are, a lot of waiver wires. You can just ride the waiver wire for quarterbacks, and if something happens, you can play the matchup. So if I'm looking here, Kyler Murray, he's only going this low in drafts. Even from his rookie season, he never went below round 6, I believe, just because his rushing upside was so insane. He's on track. His recovery is going well. I don't anticipate him to be ready for the start of week 1. I don't anticipate him to be ready until maybe even the midway of the season. He might not play at all, but right now, given that it's the end of July, and, you can waiver wire quarterbacks. There will be matchups to exploit on the waiver wire each and every week. I already have my number 1 guy in Justin Herbert. I'm totally fine. And I know in most leagues you will have an IR spot. So cool. I'll throw Kyler Murray on the IR. Totally fine with this. Right now, again, 13, 14, 15. We have 3 more rounds to go. And this is what I'm always going to advocate for. Most people say don't ever take a defense or don't take a kicker until the very last round. You're wasting talent. You're wasting your time or options on wide receivers or running backs that could be utilized, or maybe some tight ends down the board. But listen, if I'm going to take Justin Tucker here, the best kicker in the NFL, Justin Tucker's value over the next kicker that I would possibly be getting at the 414, because we have to look at, and we're going to see a lot of people take kickers before it comes back to us at the 411. So the value I get at Justin Tucker here over maybe a Tyler Bass here at the 1411 is going to be greater than any one of these wide running backs or wide receivers. And yes, I see Jalen Warren, I see Tank Bigsby, I see Ezekiel Elliott. They could be sleepers, but I already have 5 running backs. I don't need more than that. I'd rather take the added value and the guaranteed value of Justin Tucker here. I'll take him 1 round early just to guarantee that I have that production on my team. I don't think that's the worst strategy in the world. Coming back around at the 114, I'll probably look to add a defense, depending on which ones are on the board. And because I know all these other teams have to pick either a defense or a kicker, I can take my shot on a skill position player here at the 15 too. Oh, look at Tyler Bass went right before me. I'm looking at drafting here a Younghoe Koo, a Jason Myers, Brandon McManus, Matt Gay, Jason Sanders. The value that Justin Tucker has over all of these guys, way better than Elliott, Bigsby, or Warren, in my humble opinion, which, we're not oracles. We can't predict the future, but that's just my opinion. So I'll just go to defenses here. A lot of good defenses to choose from. You have the Ravens. You have the Steelers. I'm a big fan of the Bengals defense, but honestly, you're going to be streaming defenses anyway, so it's not like it really matters. So I'll pick the New England Patriots. Why not? They're historically a good defense. And now let's go back to Nico Collins, a guy that I think is, a good option in Houston, a very uncrowded wide receiver room. He could get a lot of targets. Zay Jones, Michael Gallup, Tajay Spears, DJ Chark. Whoever this is probably going to get dropped anyways, so I'm not really that concerned about it. The guy that I liked a lot was Hunter Renfrow. Unfortunately, apparently the reports at camp are not very favorable, so I might be pivoting away from Hunter Renfrow at this point. Nico Collins, I guess I'll just go with Nico Collins. Again, I have to base off my rankings at this point, but this is just a flyer on whoever you think is good. I'm not going to put too much effort into it. It's the 15th round. He will most likely end up dropped before the season even starts, especially with how, training camp goes and news bulletins. So if you're drafting this early, you can basically kiss your 15. Just leave it empty, honestly. But Nico Collins, we've talked about how vacant that the target share is in Houston for wide receiver targets. So Nico Collins having the tenure there, being the veteran player there, good a shot as any. And I could use some wide receiver depth after going running back heavy. And actually, I said I was going to feel gross after this draft. I really, really don't feel gross. If we go ahead and look at my roster, take a look if we can move my face a little bit. There we go. Please ignore. And we can do this on the fly. Oop. All right. Wonderful. Editing. Love that. We look over here, we see Justin Herbert, Christian McCaffrey, Najee Harris. My starting wide receivers are Jalen Waddle and Jahan Dotson. I love that upside. There might be weeks where I get less than 10 points from these two guys, but there will be weeks that they get me 50 points combined. I love taking the absolute upside shot. Again, I'll always be a very strong advocate of players that can win you weeks. Deontay Johnson, a guy that is just, the name of the game is consistency with him. I think I had a bet where he was like, or I had a gimmick last season where I was talking about, Deontay Johnson's going to give you 11 points, and I believe 9 out of the 17 games, he finished between 8 and 12 points. So you knew you were getting 10 or 11 points week in, week out, but he was never going to like kill you, but he was never going to win you a week. And if you want to win fantasy, you can't be good. You got to be great. You have to have those guys that are going to go up and win. That's why we spend up on Justin Herbert, and guys like Jalen Waddle and Jahan Dotson who have that upside. Dallas Goedert, again, a high-end tight end. I'm really, really infatuated with him, especially at his ADP. Not going to have to worry too much about the tight end position. He's a plug-and-play guy. Not going to have to worry about streaming tight ends. Miles Sanders and Zay Flowers. Probably not going to start off Zay here. I'll probably go down. Jamal Williams is probably going to be my flex for the first start, so we can just swap Zay and Jamal Williams there. But, I actually do not hate this lineup. I really don't. So I guess coming out of this, there's a lot of discussion around it. It made me a little bit more trepidatious down the board when, I saw a value at a wide receiver, or I saw a value, maybe like a Khalil Herbert or Javonte Williams and Alvin Kamara or David Montgomery, but I kind of felt forced to go in the direction of the wide receiver. But overall, this is a very running back heavy team just because, I feel there's a lot of value. I'm still not going to, despite not having a ton of wide receivers, I'm not going to pass up on the value of running backs later on down the draft. And just the way that this league is constructed, it allows me to have the flexibility to start 4 running backs week in and week out. There might not be that flexibility for you. You might be in leagues that have 3 wide receiver starting positions and 1 flex. And in this case, this team certainly would not fly having to start Jalen Waddle, Jahan Dotson, and Zay Flowers. So again, it's important to be acquainted with your league. This obviously is a league that's very favorable to running backs. So maybe that's why I'm not as disgusted with this running back heavy strategy. But overall, I think this is a great exercise to participate in and a great exercise that allows me to, continue to have my confidence in the fact that, hey, listen, I should have here at the 102. It should have been Cup, or it should have been Chase. Here should have been Waddle. I mean, I still got Waddle, but I would have taken Waddle here, and that would have allowed me at the 3-2, probably taken maybe a Mark Andrews, a guy that I really like, at the top of the 3rd round. I don't think that's a terrible investment as far as ADP wise, and a tight end that can be, a difference maker from that position, or another one of my favorite sleepers this year. Sleeper, I say, but a guy that I think has top 5 potential is DK Metcalf. But I'll stop talking. It's been, almost 30 minutes, so not too long of a video, but I think a lot of this will make sense as I go into my next few videos. The next videos, I'm going to be ranking my top 20 wide receivers, my top 20 running backs, my top 15 quarterbacks, and my top 10 tight ends. I believe that's how I have it structured. Let me just check my notes here. Yeah, top 15 quarterbacks, top 10 tight ends. And, that way, as people say, when you have your lists, and I'll publish this on Twitter if that's still a thing by the time those come out. We never know with how rapidly evolving social media, especially Twitter, is these days. I'll publish my list. I'll publish my tiers for what I view as the tier of wide receivers and running backs and whatnot. Just helping you to draft. But hopefully those insights and the actual complete rankings of my 2023 redraft rankings for those positions should help give you some insight into, why I continue to believe that the wide receiver position is one you should be targeting earlier in drafts. Why the running back position is one that there's so much value in down later in the draft board and the like. So that's going to be, the next few weeks. Keep a lookout for those videos, with the complete breakdown of overall 20, 40, 55, top 65 players, basically for fantasy football. Not as big as some fantasy analysts, but I'm just doing this for fun for my 25 subscribers. But hey, if you're new here, let's try to get to 100 before the season starts. That will be really, really fun. But that's enough of my ranting at the end of this video. Keep a lookout for those upcoming videos, and we'll obviously be able to sprinkle in a bunch of mock drafts as we get more information from training camp and the preseason. And as always, guys, take care.